Hi, can everyone hear me and see me? Sorry, I took so long to come on. This lighting, this is like a new setup-ish. So the lighting is a little wonky and I was just trying to make sure that the lighting is good for y'all. Let me see, make sure I can see myself on YouTube.
You should be using Monday.com.
Oh, that's my playback. Sorry about that. Okay, great. So I can see myself. Let me just make sure. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm so excited for this. The lighting is still a little bit off, so sorry about this first episode of Blind Date with a Book on Friday nights. The lighting will get better as I kind of figure out this setup. But I'm so excited for this. To prepare for this, I actually had someone choose 2 books from my shelf and place them. Okay, so for those who are unfamiliar with the concept of blind date with a book, basically what it is mostly bookstores used to have this thing that they did where they wrapped certain books either in like plain brown paper, and maybe they'll just have a tagline about the book on the front, or maybe a quippy little quote from the book, or maybe they wouldn't even have anything identifying. Maybe they would just have like the wrapping paper would just be cute, but essentially they would wrap up books so you as the purchaser of the book, you don't know what book you're buying, right? You're going in blind and you just pick base stuff of maybe whatever they've written on the cover or the wrapping paper, whatever the case is. But essentially, just like a blind date with a person, you're going in blind. You're not 100% sure what book you've chosen. Because a lot of us readers, we do a lot of, either you're one who does a lot of research about a book before you pick it up. You've seen it online, you've seen it around, and so you're familiar with the book and you really want it. Or if you're like me, I do that too, but if you're like me, you're really, really intrigued by and seduced by covers, right? Cover artists deserve more recognition, but you're really seduced by covers, and the beautiful covers really get your attention and kind of draw you in. And a lot of times that is what convinces me to purchase a book. So blind date with a book is like you don't really have anything to go off of, and it makes it more fun and more exciting and more mysterious. So obviously that is not really going on right now with everything going on with the pandemic. So I wanted to come up with my own version of blind date with a book. And I have my 2 options right here. Ta-da! So excited. But essentially I have a book in here and a book in here. Shout out to my friend Rachel for these amazing covers. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, what if you're drawn to one wrapping over the other? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have y'all pick. That way it's really blind date. So whoever's here right now, number 1 would be for the purple and number 2 will be for the gray. And I will take the first comment that I see. Okay. Night Owl Reader, you were quick with it. And you chose the purple. That was the first comment I saw, or the reddish one. So that's what we're going with. Thanks so much, Night Owl Reader, for being so fast. All right. Thank you for your input. This is what we are going with. And so this is the part where I'm going to open it up and, show y'all, and then we can start reading. But this is the time I'm going to give everyone a chance to grab your book. What are y'all reading? What will y'all be reading with me tonight? Because essentially we are going to start the reading portion of this live after I show you this. So I will just give y'all a moment to go get your books. And yeah, tell me what you're reading. Let's see. I hope y'all can see me well and hear me. Okay, Night Owl Reader, you're listening to One by One by Ruth Ware. Ooh. I love audiobooks. It's so interesting because I used to be that person that never really understood audiobooks. I am ashamed to say it, but years ago, when audiobooks, especially when Audible became popular and, other audiobooks have existed for a long time. Look at me showing my privilege. Audiobooks have existed for a long time because before we used to have books on tape, y'all. Before we had Audible and Libro FM and, you can borrow books from the library. Audiobooks used to be books on tape because there are people who cannot read physical books, whether they have some type of disability and they can't look at the written words on the page, or maybe they perhaps don't know how to read English, or whatever the case may be. They listen to books on tape. Oh my gosh, showing my privilege. Look at that. But I never understood it, I guess, because I never really had to listen to books on tape. I always was able to read. And then, later on when we had access, whether it be through the library, Audible, whatever, still didn't get it. And it wasn't until I had a job where I had to drive really far to get to work every day, and my commute was the equivalent of 2 hours out of my day, that I finally understood and fell in love with audiobooks. But I digress. Let's open this up. Oh my gosh, y'all. So excited. Ta-da! Oh, okay. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This has been on my TBR for so long, and I've actually picked it up several times and started it and haven't gotten too far. So tonight's the night, I guess. We are really diving in. Okay, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And if you have just been oblivious for the past several years, or you're not familiar with what this book is about, I will read the dust jacket quickly for those who are intrigued, and then I will begin the silent portion and reading portion of this live. Aging and reclusive Hollywood movie icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant for the job, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Why her? Why now? Monique is not exactly on top of the world. Her husband has left her, and her professional life is going nowhere. Regardless of why Evelyn has selected her to write her biography, Monique is determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career. Summoned to Evelyn's luxurious Manhattan apartment, Monique listens in fascination as Evelyn tells her story. From making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to her decision to leave show business in the 80s, and, of course, the 7 husbands along the way. Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. Monique begins to feel a very real connection to the legendary star. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in tragic and irreversible ways. Written with Reid's signature talent for creating complex, likable characters. This is a mesmerizing journey through the splendor of old Hollywood into the harsh realities of the present day as 2 women struggle with what it means and what it costs to face the truth. Okay, it's been a while since I read that dust jacket. Okay, so who else takes the dust jacket off when they read hardbacks? That is my life story. So for those who are just joining the live, you can go back to the playback and start it over. This is what I am reading tonight. The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now begins the reading portion of this live. Okay? So I'm going to mute myself, and we're going to have at least 30 minutes of silent reading. It's going to be good. All right. Sorry to interrupt everyone's reading. I just have to have a quick location change due to the noises and stuff. So my office area, which is where I was filming, is right by the kitchen area. So if others are using the kitchen, then, back to the book. Okay, it's been about an hour since we started this together, and I'm on page 38, and I am already obsessed. With those who joined the live after I chose the book, or rather y'all chose, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is what I am currently reading, and I have already underlined 2 passages because I don't have any like marking tabs. I'm gonna have to get some. And I just want to say, I'm not going to spoil it for those who haven't read it yet, but I relate so much to our main character already. Well, one of our main characters, because Evelyn Hugo obviously is one as well. But so is the writer Jacqueline, I want to say. I mean, excuse me, not Jacqueline, Monique. Sorry, I relate so much to Monique already. Oh my gosh. There's just so many passages that I want to go back and underline already. I'm only on page 38. How? But yes, like from page 1, me and Monique, we were here. We were here. Oh my gosh. I just want to go back to reading this book. So how's everyone's reading going? Molly, you say I've been meaning to read that book for years. Oh my God, I'm so excited to hear what you think. This book is so good already. Like I'm shook. I'm shook. Like, you know when you start a book and you can tell it's going to become one of your all-time favorites? That's how I feel right now, and it's making me nervous because I'm only on page 38. But I connected instantly to Monique, who is a struggling writer. Well, struggling is a bit strong, but essentially she's like stalled in her career. She's 35. She's dealing with a failed marriage, and she has this opportunity of a lifetime fall into her lap to interview like this amazing movie star. And I would say Evelyn Hugo, the movie star of this book, is their version of like a Elizabeth Taylor, you know, in this fictional world. That's what I see. Like like if Elizabeth Taylor was still alive and I got the opportunity to interview her as a writer and write her book. Ow. But yeah, she gives me Elizabeth Taylor vibes, just like incredibly beautiful, married a bunch of times, has this mystery around her life, an icon. Monique, the writer, the book starts off with a bang. She's biracial, and there's like little hints in there about like just like her experience with being biracial, which I like. Already on page 38, I think Taylor Jenkins Reid does a great job of like setting the stage for that background and us like hopefully diving deeper into that. And she works at a magazine or for a media outlet that, and her department is being run by a Black woman, which is amazing. I don't know. I'm invested. I'm in. Like, I'm here, okay? Me and the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo are here. I'm so ready. I mean, the things that I underlined, like the things that Evelyn has already said, amazing. Like iconic. She's already dropped gems. She's giving life lessons, okay? Her and Monique have only met one time. She's schooling her, and she's schooling me because I'm outlining. I'm like, yes, girl, yes. And I see it so clearly, right? Because Evelyn's in her 70s. She's lived this life. And I feel like the older you get, the more you can really see life in its shades of gray. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to read this book, because to have one of the characters be so much older, you get this perspective of someone who's lived this rich life. And, you know, there have been a lot of scandalous things that have happened in her life. And I'm so intrigued to find out what those are. But yes, I'm here. I'm so excited. This is crazy. I can't believe I waited so long to like really get into this. Like I said, I picked it up many, many times, and like read like, one page, like the first page or two. And then for whatever reason, I put it down. But I think I can't talk. I think so many times with our reading experience, it comes down to timing. I feel like y'all will get me on this as a reader. Like a lot of times you enjoying a book really comes down to timing, like you reading it at the right time, right? Like some of my favorite books I've ever read is because I read those books at exactly the right time in my life. And maybe if I had read them sooner or later, they wouldn't have had quite the same impact. They wouldn't have grabbed me in quite the same way. But everything in the universe just aligned. Like my, what I was going through, my life where I was, and my desire to read the book, everything just came together. I would just like to say the book literally starts out with a dedication saying, "For Lila, smash the patriarchy, sweetheart." How could you not love? That was like the first sign. I was like, yeah, I'ma love it. This is the right time for me to read this book. So how is everyone's reading going? Hey, Bree, welcome. Let's see. D says, I've finished my Stephen Hawking book finally. I'm kind of confused on what I read, but I have the gist. Is it like a biography or of his life? That's so interesting. Confused? Why? Why are you confused? What happened? Molly, completely. And that's why I try to lean into being a mood reader and not to be too stringent about my TBR. Yeah, I was really into the ideas of a TBR years ago, like back in like 2014, 2015, because honestly, think about it, y'all. Before watching booktube videos, did you do TBRs in your real life? Like, did you pick out books that you were going to read for the month? It's a fairly new concept for me because growing up, I, like many people, I read one book at a time, or I would go to the library. And I guess that was the closest thing to a TBR I had growing up, was the library, right? Because you go to the library and you get the books that you're interested in reading. And with the library, because there's a finite amount of time that you can have those books, you have to return them after all, you are instantly forced, maybe forced is the wrong word, but you only get the books that you want to read right now, right? You're like, I can only have these books for 2 weeks. These are the books I want to read right now, like right now. And so that's my experience with TBRs. Was the library, and that pressure or that looming deadline of like, this book is due on this day, I need to finish it. I always read most of the books that I got from the library. There were a few times that I didn't, but for the most part I did. And so this idea of like a TBR outside of that experience is fairly new to me, and I don't think it works for me personally because I am a mood reader. And it's different because when you go to the library, those are the books that you want to read immediately. When you choose a TBR, at least for me, I'm choosing from this, like, all these books that I own. And so I'm not going into it necessarily like, these are the books I want to read right now. I'm just like, oh, I think this would be interesting. Oh, I think this would be interesting. And then inevitably my TBR never ends up being what I want it to be, ever. Because I'm like, oh, I'm not in the mood to read this anymore. I'm going to read this instead. Never works out for me. D says, I almost always have 60 books checked out from the library, and most of the time I don't read them. I just love going to the library. That's so funny. I have had that experience in the past, but I've actually, ever since I started my no-buy, I bought some books. I'm not going to lie. I bought some books, mostly romances, on my Kindle, but I have been using the library a lot. Okay, so let's talk about what we're currently reading outside of Seven Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo. Let me just open up my little app. I have so many apps. I have the Libby app, which I use religiously. Religiously. Like the Libby app and I are like besties. I also have Overdrive, obviously, which is like works hand in hand with Libby. And I also have another popular one is Hoopla. Hoopla I mostly use for audiobooks. So this is what I've been reading ever since the year started. Let me just clue y'all in. And I have been influenced by Bridgerton and Virgin River extremely. If you're not familiar with that, those are adaptations that are very popular on Netflix right now. Virgin River is adapted from a series by Robin Carr. Bridgerton is adapted from a historical romance series by Julia Quinn. So I have read so many. Okay, so I got like almost every Virgin River book that my library has, and some of them I had to wait weeks for. Okay, very popular. Like they were on, I was on a hold list. I think the longest I waited for one of the books to become available was 2.5 weeks. So I tried to read them in order, but I couldn't 100% read them in order all the time. I am currently on book, y'all are gonna die. I think I'm currently on book, I want to say 15 or 16 in the series, which is wild. Yes, the Virgin River series goes on forever, y'all. I will say this, just like every book lover, I love the series, the book series, more than the actual adaptation on Netflix, which is saying something because the Netflix adaptation is so good, right? It's so good. For those that have watched it, the books are even better. That's all I'll say about that. I don't want to spoil anything. And then for Bridgerton, I read the Bridgerton books years ago. These are not new books. They came out, I want to say, like 90s, 2000s. I mean, obviously there's like 8 books, so they came out, over the years. And I read them a long time ago, and watching the adaptation on Netflix has made me want to reread the series again. So I'm currently rereading the first book from the series, and I'm doing something new. I'm actually listening to it on audiobook. And then let's see, what else have I read recently? That's what I also like about the Libby app. You can kind of see everything. Okay, so along with Bridgerton, Julia Quinn also has some other books that I really like and that I read in the past. And so I reread some of her other books as well. Oh, this is a series that I have a video coming out on soon, and I'm really excited for y'all to see it. But I finally read the Crazy Rich Asians trilogy by Kevin Kwan, because I finally watched the film Crazy Rich Asians. I watched it like recently, like in the past couple months. Finally, I have so many thoughts about that series. I will say this. Kevin Kwan knows how to get your attention and write a good story, because I read those books literally, y'all, within 1 weekend. I could not stop reading. I read the first one, and then I had to read the second one, and then I immediately had to read the third. And thankfully, my library had all 3 of them available. But within the course of a single weekend, Friday night to Sunday night, I had read the entire series, and I have so many thoughts. Again, video coming. It'll probably be up early February. Like, I think I'm scheduling it for like that first weekend in February. So stay tuned. So that I really enjoyed. That was early January. I read that. And what else have I read recently that I really enjoyed? Okay. Another series that I've started is Nora Roberts, the very like infamous romance novelist. If you have never heard of Nora Roberts, I really don't know where you've been. Maybe you just don't read romance, but she's like this huge icon of a writer in the romance world. But she wrote this series that's like kind of like a not post-apocalyptic, it's like a dystopian on its way to post-apocalyptic series. Y'all may have seen it. Let me see if I can get the cover. This is book 1. Can y'all see that? Year 1. It's hard to see. I might have to turn down my brightness. Ooh, turned it down too much. You can kind of see it. Year 1. Okay, maybe y'all have seen this book around. I have been intrigued by this series for a long time. Hi, Charity. Thanks for joining us. I've been intrigued by this series for a long time, and I finally saw that my library had it, so I picked it up. Y'all, shooketh, okay? She wrote this series back years, like in 2017, I think. Tell me how I pick up a book about a pandemic that comes out of nowhere that is part like prophecy. So there's like magic involved, but it's very eerie because the way the pandemic starts is because this family that's vacationing in Scotland on their like, you know, little vacation estate in Scotland, this older Caucasian family from the US, the men go hunting. This is not really a spoiler. It literally happens on the first page of the book, first couple pages. And they eat something, and that starts off everything. And I had chills. I was like, and this was like a pandemic that was devastating to the world. Okay, I'm talking billions of people died. That's all I'm gonna say. I highly recommend. I mean, the foundation of the series is a romance. It's Nora Roberts. I mean, come on. She's not going to go too far from her wheelhouse. But the romance is so good. There's so much that happens. I'm literally shook reading this because we're currently in a pandemic. I'm reading about a pandemic. The pandemic in the book is way worse than what we're experiencing, which is very sad. But yeah, and the way the book ends, and she's not afraid to like sacrifice certain characters. One character in particular that, like, you know, when you're reading a book and you're just like, oh my God, please don't let that person die. And then it happens, and then you finish the book, but you're grieving, like you are grieving. And the character is grieving too, but then the character's grief by the end of the book is like manageable. Because, you know, in books, like they could skip like 5 months later, 5 years later. So the character is like in a different place emotionally, but you just read about that character's death. And so you're still grieving. You're like, I'm not there with you, sis. You're healed. I'm still, this character just died 2 chapters ago. I'm still upset. So when I finished the book, I was like, I'm so upset. So I got the entire series in the library, so I'm going to be reading that this weekend. I've finished the first book, year 1, and then the next books of Blood and Bone, I think is book 2, right? Yeah, of Blood and Bone. I want to try to show y'all the cover, but it's like, can y'all even see? Of Blood and Bone and The Rise of Magics is the 3rd and final. So that's on my docket for this weekend. And apparently so is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because I have a feeling I'm going to be reading that tonight. I also have some more Virgin River books that I have gotten from my library. I'm currently reading the Virgin River book 2 because I read book 1, skipped book 2, read 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so forth. And because I was on hold for book 2 for 3.5 weeks. So I'm currently reading the second book in the series, Virgin River series, and then I also have books 16 and 17 from my library. So I'm sure I'll get to those at some point. And then I have the entire Vampire Academy series as well. Hey, Shyby Reading, welcome. I'm glad you can see the covers, D. It's bad that I only know the Nora Roberts book because of the second book title and that drama. There's drama? Why is there always drama? Oh my gosh. See, this is why I stay off book Twitter. I like to be informed because obviously I don't want to support authors that are like phobic, any type of phobia. Don't, you know, that don't like people for whatever reason. I don't like that. So I like to be informed on that level, you know. But I'm also like, there's always drama. What was the drama? D, spill the tea. I need to know. Okay, back to what else I got from the library. I have the entire Vampire Academy series. And again, something I'm reading for a future video coming up. And yeah, these books are in high demand at my library. High demand. Like I can't renew them. It's due in eight days, the entire series. Okay, I have it. And I can't renew them because one person is waiting, and it tells you, it'll be like, one person is waiting, and it's like so much pressure. And I'm just like, oh my God, I have 8 days to finish the series. And I refuse to buy the box set because I'm, you know, obviously on a no buy. So frustrating. And then another book that let me tell y'all what's on hold, because I have a few things on hold. Well, I only have one thing on hold. The Jessica Simpson book, the audio book, is on hold because I heard that Jessica Simpson spills the tea. Okay. And if you're like me and you grew up around the same time I grew up, and you grew up watching that atrocious reality show that Jessica Simpson had with her first husband, Nick Lachey, and there's memes about it now, but there was this whole moment where this is when we all knew that Jessica and Nick's marriage wasn't going to last, is when she had this ditzy moment where I think she had a can of like tuna fish and it was called like chicken of the sea or something, but it was tuna. And she had this ditzy blonde moment where she was like, is this chicken or is this fish? And you could just see the disdain on Nick Lachey's face. You could see, there's this psychological thing that a lot of therapists say, that if your husband or partner shows like disdain for you, I feel like disdain is not the right word. There's another word for it that I can't think of right now. But if they show that expression or show that towards you, your relationship is not going to last. Like you're on the way to Splitsville, because that means that they don't, at the core, they don't respect you. They don't really like you. They look down on you. Disdain's not the right word, but I can't think of the right word right now. But the look on his face is like, this dumb broad. And you just know in that moment, you're like, yeah, this relationship is on its way out. He does not like this girl. And it's captured forever. It was one of the first reality TV shows. But I literally am on hold for that audiobook. First of all, she narrates the book. So I love when people narrate their life story. But she narrates the book. Just to get the tea on that whole marriage, and to get the tea on her relationship with John Mayer. Again, if you're not really into like celebrity stuff, then you won't know or care or remember. But she had this like on and off relationship with John Mayer that went on for years. And you could just see how much he affected her in a negative way. I mean, you have Jessica Simpson, who's literally been blonde since she came out at 16 years old. She starts dating John Mayer. She dyes her hair brown. By the way, she's never dyed her hair brown before or since. She dyed her hair brown. She started, trying to take on this persona, right? Because John Mayer is known as this like mercurial artist. He's very talented, but he's also kind of an asshole. Like, he's not the nicest to women. I mean, he's different now because time's passed. He's older, he's wiser. But back in the day, y'all, he was a fuckboy. Can I say that? He was a fuckboy. He was one of Hollywood's fuckboys. And you just saw her trying. It was like she was trying to morph herself into him, or into someone that she thought that he would be compatible with. It was painful to watch. Long story short, it was painful to watch. Homegirl dyed her hair brown. She was wearing different clothing. She was trying to sound intellectual. It was a mess. So I need to get the tea on that relationship and on her marriage to Nick Lachey, okay? And then I've also been trying to get the Mariah Carey book, but my library doesn't have it, which is really frustrating, and I refuse to purchase it. So if anyone wants to purchase the Mariah Carey book for me, I will love you forever, because I really want to read that. I've heard that one is really good too. But yeah, so that's on my docket right now, my TBR on my library. And like I said, there's something about knowing that something has to go back to the library that just makes you read it, Maybe that's my issue, and why I have failed with TBRs in the past, is because they're books that I own and I know I could read them at any time, So I don't feel this like I don't feel like, okay, I need to read this. I need to read. I'm just like, I don't feel like reading this right now. I'll read it later. I'll read something else. Something about the library, like that whole little notification, due in 8 days. One person is waiting. And you're just like, oh my God. So I have been doing a lot better with reading stuff in the library, like right away. But yeah, that's what's up on my library shelf. I don't have anything else. I'm really excited about my Crazy Rich Asians video that's going to be going up soon. I'm excited for y'all to see it. I'm excited for the discussions. I'm trying to see what else I've read that I can tell y'all and we can talk about. Slater EA says Jessica Simpson minted a mean coin in business after all those dumb blonde highlight reel moments. She did. That's the thing. Like, I feel like she got this public persona of being stupid, but she is not stupid. She is like this juggernaut of a businesswoman. Okay. For a while there, and still to this day, like, her company is doing so well. The shoes, the perfumes, everything else that she sells. I've lost track. I think she sells clothes too. I remember the shoes were huge. Like, everyone was buying Jessica Simpson shoes at one point. Okay, let's see. What else have I read? Really, y'all, I've been reading just like Virgin River. I mean, clearly, because I'm on book 16. Oh, I listened to the audiobook of Pride and Prejudice. So good. And there are different audiobooks out there. And I wish I knew who narrated this one. I will try to find out for y'all who narrated the one that I read, because I highly recommend. I got that from the library. And y'all know I love Pride and Prejudice, but it was my first time listening to the audiobook, because usually I just read it. So good. Let's see what else I've read recently in the past month or two. Also reread. Yes, her perfume is so good, Monica. Jessica Simpson's perfume is so good. I reread the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy, and I'm debating whether or not to make a video about that, because does anyone care anymore? But I really like the movies. I mean, it's Twilight fan fiction, but way racier with BDSM, but not really BDSM. But I watched the movies recently, right? Like maybe November of 2020. And watching the movies made me want to reread the books, because it's been years, y'all, since I reread those books. I read them back when they first came out, back when E.L. James was doing self-publishing. So I read them back then, like before the hype. Then the hype came, and then I read them during the hype, watched the films. But that was years ago. So I reread the entire 50 Shades of Grey trilogy, which was an interesting experience. And then I started reading the trilogy that she started writing from Christian's perspective. She like rewrote the first two books in the series. Not rewrote, but she wrote well, I guess it was a rewrite. Yeah, she rewrote the first two books in the series from Christian Grey's perspective. Wow. All I will say is those books from Christian's perspective are so much better than the original books. And I kind of wish I had never read the original 50 Shades of Grey books, and I had only read them from Christian's perspective. Keep in mind, she only wrote the first two books from his perspective. She still has not written the third book, and she may never write the third book. But I'm okay with that, because the way and where it ends in book two from his perspective is perfect. It's a great ending. I'm okay with it. You could just see how much her writing has grown. And honestly, Christian Grey is way more interesting of a character than Anna. Like, Anna is so bland. I mean, she is meant to be like the Bella, right? She's boring as fuck. She's boring. Christian is so much more interesting with his tortured past and, you know, his reasons for being into BDSM and all the things that he has going on in his mind. Oh my gosh, he's so much more interesting. So actually reading things from his perspective and watching everything unfold from his eyes, so good. The writing is better. E.L. James has grown as a writer. His head is way more interesting to be in than Anna's. Also, the events that unfold from Christian's perspective, it just makes more sense, because a lot of times I remember reading the original books from Anna's, and I'm like, why is she reacting like this? Or what is going on? You know, a lot of her reactions, being in her head was just like, girl, what is going on? You need to get some self-esteem, some therapy. Being in his mind was like, okay, yeah, okay, yep. Completely different experience. Yeah, Bella is boring, therefore Anna is boring. And you can't help but think why these charismatic, mysterious, tortured, dynamic men, or in Edward's case, vampire, are infatuated with these boring women. Whatever. Definitely self-insertion fiction. That's all I can say. But yeah, so that's what I've been reading for the past like since December, really. I'm trying to look back because I've mostly been reading books from the library and a little bit on my Kindle, like, you know, Kindle ebooks. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going through my backlog. But yes, I'm so excited about this, y'all. I don't know. I'm so excited about The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think this is starting off my reading year really good because I've already read some really great books. Like the Nora Roberts series, I highly recommend. If you like post-apocalyptic slash, yeah, it's almost like we're starting at the beginning of an apocalypse. And then we're going into after the events that cause the apocalypse. So if you like that kind of stuff, you'll like it. But if you don't like romance, you probably won't like it because it has a lot of romance, you know, in it because it's Nora Roberts. So recommend that. I do recommend Crazy Rich Asians if you haven't read it, the series. I have a lot of thoughts, but ultimately I recommend. And the Virgin River series, I also recommend. It feels very warm and cozy. So if you ever watched a TV show that was popular in the early 2000s called One Tree Hill, if you have ever watched that show and you enjoyed it, you will love Virgin River. It gives that same One Tree Hill vibes of like small town, group of friends, going through things. There's like romance plot lines, there's family drama, you know, like it gives that same warm, cozy vibe to the point where the town of Virgin River is one of the main characters. So if you like that type of vibe, then you'll like the Virgin River books, probably even more than the show, like me. And what else? Yeah, those are my top recommendations. I'm enjoying Vampire Academy. It feels very juvenile because it is. And I have to remember that I read the books the first time around years ago when I was much younger. So rereading it now is definitely interesting. It's a different experience. I'm enjoying all the drama, but a lot of times I'm just like, y'all ain't gonna talk to each other and iron it out. No. Okay. Let's see. Dee says, I started with a book I didn't like, unfortunately. It was for taste reasons, though. Were they ever going to film the second book for Crazy Rich Asians? I don't know, because now that I've read the series, Crazy Rich Asians, they don't need to make another film. Because a lot of the things that they wrapped up and included in the first film were storylines that were kind of outlined in like the subsequent books. So it's kind of like they cherry picked certain storylines and elements throughout the series, right? And included them in that one film. So that's why I'm just kind of like, I mean, I guess they could make a second and third film because there are a lot of things that they changed. A lot of things that they changed from books to movies. A lot of changes. So I guess technically they could adapt the next two books into films and it would just be along the same vein. You know, they would continue to change things. But after reading the books now, having watched the films first, or the film first, I can see how they don't really need to adapt any further. If they chose not to, they don't need to. Also, I watched the trailer for the third To All the Girls I Loved Before book. The third film on Netflix is coming out soon. Has anyone seen that trailer? Does anyone care? I adored the first two movie adaptations, and so I'm really excited to see the third one. I think that is going to be really cute and just wrap everything up so nicely. So I just watched that trailer, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, we have been on here for almost 2 hours. This was a great first episode of Blind Date with a Book. This will continue on Friday nights. I'm thinking of doing this like once a month so that I can actually have time to read the books that are being chosen. I can't do it every week because then it's just like, have you finished the book from the last blind date? No, yes. Because y'all are gonna want to know. Maybe every 2 weeks, right? Every 2 weeks, like bi-weekly as opposed to weekly. And that's probably better than once a month, because by the time we get to, by the time we get through a whole month, I may not even remember like the details and things that I might want to talk about from the book that I read. So yeah, episode 1, a blind date with a book, is done, and we will always do it on Friday nights at 8 p.m. That way y'all just know. Okay, D says, I saw the trailer, haven't watched the second movie though. LOL, kind of lost interest in them in high school. Really? I think I read, again, this goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning, towards the beginning of this discussion. I really think that I loved To All the Boys I Loved Before series so much because I read it at the perfect time. It was summer. The books the first book had recently just come out. I don't know. I was in the perfect time in my life, the perfect place. I was really looking for that type of read. And I loved the fact that we were reading from a different type of YA. It wasn't the typical white high schooler. I really enjoyed the fact that we were looking through things through the eyes of a protagonist who was half Asian, or who is half Asian, and how she's so proud of her heritage, and that comes from her mom, and it was just the right time for me to read them. I think that's why I enjoyed them so much. I really want to reread the books. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody. This has been so fun. Oh my gosh, this has been so good. But I will catch y'all in the next episode of Blind Date with a Book, Friday night, 8 p.m. It'll probably be in February. I'm thinking probably Friday, February 5th will be the next one. So, okay, good night, everyone. This was so good. D says, yeah, I love the first 2 books in high school, but by the time I graduated high school, I didn't care anymore. Fair. All right. I will catch y'all later. Bye. Bye, everybody. Good night. Happy reading this weekend. Happy reading.